A very big thank you to His Excellency President Paul Kagame for setting the tone for the conversation that we're about to have. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the format that we're going to take with this conversation is something that I call short, sharp, and to the point. And the reason why we're going to be short, sharp, and to the point and concise is that we do have time constraints. So we're going to have a few minutes of moderated conversations on the stage. I've had to quickly start taking away my nice-to-have questions and just really get to the core of the difficult questions. And also, we're going to be hearing from some special interventions, and these are going to be some of our partners that I will call on from the audience to answer a very specific question, which I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask them to answer that question in no more than 1 minute. Now, the beautiful thing about being a moderator is that you also have moderating superpowers. And what that means is that if that 1 minute starts feeling like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I will stop you. So please, let's work within the constraint that we have. I'm under strict instructions.
May I suggest the technical people sort out something? There are too many echoes and things are not being heard properly.
Technical team, if we could please make sure that from an audio perspective that everybody can hear. Yeah? And if anybody else is having an issue, please can you also just raise your hand so we know exactly where we can assist you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to get right into it, and I'm going to start off with you, President Kagame. You have ended your opening comment on a very clear challenge. You've said that we are innovators, we are thinkers. We cannot just be the consumers of what comes from elsewhere on the back of a digitalized global economy. What 3 things do you think are going to be absolute game changers that we would need to focus on now to accelerate the journey that we're already on? 3 things that would completely change the game and help us to move considerably faster.
Well, there are many things, but let's pick maybe a few. And that it starts with first the Africans. We Africans realizing the depth and breadth of our responsibility in realizing the digital agenda, which supports the broader African transformation agenda. We have to be clear about that. Second, there are a number of things you need once you have made that full realization. There is a requirement for resources to invest in what we have to do. Therefore, we have to unlock the private capital that is out there that can be put to good use for the benefit of the private sector, but also for the benefit of our citizens. The next step is to make sure that the private sector cannot work alone. Therefore, they have to work in partnerships, with the governments, which governments can also not work alone. And if you want to maximize on the resources, then you have to bring the 2 sides together, and each should do what best they know how. And the governments must also invest, especially in the area of digital infrastructure, especially the backbone, then on which the private sector can build for the last mile connectivity and therefore investments. And you move again. With this, the investments have to result into things that are affordable, are accessible to our citizens.
Yeah.
So again, the regulators, the policymakers have to bear in mind that they have to put in place the kind of framework that will actually facilitate these investments, private, public investments, so they don't become too expensive. In the end, that cost is transferred to the consumers or the end users. So the policy regulatory frameworks have to be very sensitive to this, and it has to bear in mind this kind of collaboration. Maybe those are three, but I could go on and on and on, but well, later on you have to create the market.
Yeah.
You have to invest in development of these digital skills, digital literacy, so that more and more of our citizens are actually making good use of these investments and are becoming a growing market, therefore, and justifying the large amounts of resources that have got to go into it. It's a broad thing, but I would rather follow that path, and I think it would be where I want to be.
So, Mr. President, a very clear path, but one that also seems to emphasize that this is the significance of partnerships, because different players are going to have to focus on different things. And I'll come to some of the issues that you raised, but one of the things, President Kenyatta, that I would like to bring to you, which President Kagame has raised, is this idea of being deliberate about investing in the infrastructure. Now, when we look at the case of Kenya, we're often told that Kenya is a breakout country, very clear, rapid advancements, leading in a number of places in terms of digital transformation, but also constrained by infrastructure. And so as you hear these game changers, what is Kenya doing to make sure that you are making sure that infrastructure doesn't continue to be a constraint that really makes Kenya a world leader?
I think the emphasis is the investment, as President Kagame has just said. And in Kenya, we have really focused ourselves on investing, especially in our fiber network, and now going to the next stage of the last mile. And one of the great things is the new partnerships that we're now finding with the World Bank and others that is helping us fast-track that infrastructure. The second aspect is really focusing ourselves on skills development. And this is, again, preparing our people to reap the dividend of this connectivity once in place. And as you've said, we have already begun to see the benefits of the ICT investments that we have made. We talk of M-Pesa in Kenya. Before M-Pesa, Kenya had only about 30% of the population that were banked. After M-Pesa, we're now almost at 97% who are able to access financial services as a result. New opportunities for our young people. So we in Kenya are particularly keen on ensuring that within the next maximum 5 years, every single part of our country should be connected, and people are able to begin to take advantage of this infrastructure to create opportunities for themselves and for the country.
Very clear, very deliberate. Within the next 5 years, every single citizen should be connected. So let me go to President Boubacar Keita. Now, Mr. President, there's a saying that says you cannot boil the ocean all at once. And sometimes those who say this are talking about us needing to prioritize and to take deliberate small steps towards a greater achievement. What are the priorities in Mali, in particular towards moving this particular market towards a digital economy?
Merci bien. Et cette question est très pertinente. même se demander pourquoi le président du Mali a tenu à être présent ici aujourd'hui.
My apologies, Your Excellency. We are on Channel 2 for French, Channel 1 for English, and Channel 3 for Arabic. Is everybody okay? Thank you very much. Your Excellency, I do apologize. Please proceed.
Je vous en prie, madame, c'est moi. J'ai dit que la présence du président du Mali, bien que membre fondateur de Smart Africa, en ces moments précis où l'on sait mon pays en but à une agression terroriste d'un genre singulier, mais précisément en raison de cela, nous nous devions d'être ici. Si nous avons compris que le terreau sur lequel prospère le terrorisme dans nos régions est la pauvreté, et que l'effort premier doit être de faire en sorte de nous qualifier au plan économique pour être présents au monde, d'abord dans notre sous-région. Et cela, nous l'avons réussi sans forfanterie dans notre espace économique, l'Union économique et monétaire ouest-africaine. Nous avons, malgré le contexte qui est le nôtre, réussi la prouesse d'être aujourd'hui la troisième économie de l'UEMOA. Les critères de convergence observés sont très parlants à ce niveau-là. Et nous avons compris qu'il fallait également que nous saisissions la chance actuelle qu'a le monde avec cette fabuleuse innovation qu'est l'économie numérique, de faire en sorte que notre pays, qui est assez vaste, qui a 1 240 000 km², puisse commercer avec lui-même au-dedans, au plan humain comme au plan économique. Et qu'en quelques lieux que ce soit du Mali, les populations puissent être jointes dans des conditions sécurisées et fiables. Tout cela n'est possible aujourd'hui que grâce au numérique. Au plan physique, le voyage à l'intérieur du Mali aujourd'hui, en raison de ces nouveaux systèmes que nous trouvons partout au bout du chemin, ces engins explosifs improvisés rendent l'aller et venir très difficile. Et nous rêvons, nous, à ce que des drones, un système de drones, pourrait nous permettre de faire de manière sécurisée pour le ravitaillement de nos populations, car ce que les militaires appellent la mission souple, la mission à ravitaillement, est devenue une gageure de l'ordre difficile. Et cela, aujourd'hui, dans un pays enclavé. Nous avons cette frontière, madame. Nous avons une zone centrale du Mali aujourd'hui également en proie à une ébullition fabuleuse, où également l'aller et venir n'est pas évident en raison de la présence de l'eau partout. Donc, difficile de joindre ces endroits-là. Le miracle que l'on pourrait faire au plan de la santé notamment, en délivrant les médicaments, en voyant les gens, cela n'est possible et envisageable aujourd'hui qu'avec le numérique et avec tout ce que la technologie des ICT pourrait nous permettre de faire. Donc, madame, ma présence ici est tout à fait requise et idoine, et avec beaucoup de profit. Je dois dire également aussi, madame, que je suis également ici aujourd'hui à l'aise, et l'ouverture qui a été faite de manière fabuleuse par la jeunesse rwandaise, par les jeunes rwandais, m'a interpellé. M'a interpellé en tant que, en ma qualité de champion africain de la culture, des arts et du patrimoine. Tout ce qui a été dit est fabuleux. Et je suis ici à côté d'Oldoué-Gorge. Je suis ici dans une zone qui connaît, qui a connu l'antériorité de l'Afrique, qui l'a attesté. Les travaux de Liké, ce n'est pas Ouro qui me dira le contraire. Nous ne sommes pas loin non plus du Kenya et du Tchad, Toumaï. Donc tout cela a été dit ici aujourd'hui avec brio. Cette Afrique dont nous sommes fiers doit être présente au monde et portée vers l'avenir. Et l'avenir, c'est dit ici aujourd'hui à Kigali. Pourquoi nous sommes là avec plaisir, madame. Merci.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for that contribution. I do want to stay just very shortly with President Boubacar Keïta again, because I think it's an opportunity for us to also talk about the cost of connectivity. If we look at a series of reports from the World Bank, they will tell us that landlocked countries generally have higher costs compared to some of our coastal countries. And we know that this is a phenomenon that is true for Mali. How do you plan to make sure that the cost of getting access to technology comes down for the ordinary citizen in Mali?
Madame, merci beaucoup. J'ai fait un constat avec beaucoup de plaisir de l'engouement réel qu'ont suscité les ICT au Mali. Et nous avons aujourd'hui une couverture fabuleuse. 26 millions de gens connectés. Sur une population de 18 millions, 120%. Donc il y a une densité là, madame, une télédensité qui est absolument merveilleuse. Nous avons 6 millions de gens connectés à Internet. Et tout cela dans un pays qui vit ce qu'il vit aujourd'hui. Et nous sommes des partisans convaincus depuis l'abord des PPP. Et nous ouvrons largement le marché malien à tous ceux-là qui veulent bien aujourd'hui prendre le risque porteur, le risque payant de venir au Mali. Quelquefois, on exagère beaucoup, on nous met en zone rouge, on met le rouge vif là-dessus, mais je dis que notre pays est vivable. Et d'investir au Mali est rentable. Et je suis très heureux de voir mon jeune compatriote ici, Samba Bachili. Donc ce pays-là, je pense, c'est le pays d'Amadoune Touré. Donc le Mali est un pays porteur. Le Mali demande que l'investissement en numérique devienne encore plus costaud et a toutes les chances de prospérer. Et en tout cas, nous lui faisons le meilleur accueil. Merci bien, madame.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm making my way back closer this way, but I'm going to go to Kenya first before I come back to President Kagame. President Kenyatta, you spoke very clearly about focusing on young people and making sure that the young people have the skills to actually deliver on a digital economy for Kenya and a transformed Africa for the continent. What have you done, especially in the context of changing something within the education system, to make sure that you are producing young people that are fit for purpose and young people that have the right skills? And if you could share some of those tweaks that maybe have happened in Kenya that can be replicated in other markets on the continent to make sure that our people are fit for purpose for the journey that we're on.
I think the first thing is that we're changing our curriculum. Changing our curriculum from primary to secondary to make our young people fit and ready for the kind of jobs that the digital world is going to produce. So the first thing, I think, is education. The second is we're also working with a lot of young people through a program we call Ajira. And here we're working together and in conjunction with private sector, where we give young people skills and then work together with them and hold their hand as they now get online work, and they are mentored through the process. And this again creates opportunities, organizing them in clubs and things like that. So it is skills development, education. These, I believe, are the fundamental parts of having a population that is ready. We've gone a stage further, just as in Rwanda here, providing computers and computer labs to schools. So again, kids have familiarity. You know, it's not a strange thing to them. They grow up with it, they learn with it, and it becomes part and parcel of them, in short. So these are some of the initiatives that we are currently undertaking in Kenya that are helping us get a population that is ready for this fourth revolution that's coming.
President Kagame, building on what we've heard from President Kenyatta, is that if we do have skilled young people, we also increase our opportunities of having innovation-led entrepreneurship. And once we have that, we also are able to create smart jobs, and we're more deliberate again about building our knowledge-based economies and our digital economies. What more should we be doing to ensure that we are actually creating across African markets the best chance for innovation-led entrepreneurs to really become a part of transforming Africa? What are we not yet there in terms of doing that we need to do more deliberately for them?
Yeah, I completely agree with what President Uhuru Kenyatta has just said. And from the beginning, I've always said we must make deliberate efforts after identifying these constraints, and then move deliberately to. First, we have to create jobs, and jobs are jobs. So whether they are digital or otherwise. We even still have problems with creating jobs of different kind that we are used to. So I just want to make sure that we understand where we put a lot of weight, and as we should, on digital transformation, and therefore development of digital economy that feeds into the wider growth and development. We have to be mindful of legacy problems that we need to address, and then continue with what we have to deal with now and even in the future. So that is one. The second, as the President of Kenya has just said, digital skills are essential, and they are inevitable development for those, therefore, must be focused on. There is no other way around it. But there are other things we have to look at. You know, we've talked about one single air transport market across Africa, right? We talked about, and I've already made good progress on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and the area we have created for that. All those, as we make progress into them, one must keep asking themselves the rationale. For example, or simply understanding why has it been like this in the first place. Let me give an example. In fact, earlier on, we were talking with the president of Mali about the airlines that serve our countries and capitals. And when you have in mind that going to Bamako from Kigali, maybe you have to first go to Poland, and then come back to Bamako, right? What's it? Yeah, I had reserved that for another moment. But they serve the same purpose.
Yeah.
So, therefore, we need to be creating these connections directly.
Yeah.
Or at least, if you are going to Bamako from Kigali, maybe you go to Nairobi and then straight to Bamako. I can understand that. It makes sense. Or to Addis and then to Bamako.
But not Poland.
But why do you have to go to Poland? Why do you have to go to Brussels? Why do you have to go to... It just doesn't make sense. And why don't we think like that even in this digital economy.
Yeah.
In fact, data is moving like this air transport.
Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes it has to go to Poland, and then it comes back. So it doesn't make sense. Or you know, voice, when I'm speaking instead of, in fact, when I call President of Kenya or call the President of Mali and want to talk to them on the phone, sometimes I think I'm talking to them directly, but I have had to take my voice first to Europe,
Yeah.
to be inspected. As to what I'm saying to,
Yeah.
it does. Why can't we create these connecting points
Yeah.
on our continent? What is the problem? And how can we be talking about all these other things and we don't talk about that?
Yeah.
So some of the things are purely, okay, most of them are technical, others require all kinds of resources. But actually, the very essential thing here that we don't address very often is even politics. Let me call it that way.
Yeah.
Yes, it's ideological, it's political, it's just logic of things. Yes, based on what I've just said. Why do I need, if I go directly from Kigali to Nairobi, why do I first have to go to Dubai?
Yeah.
And then come back? Of course, and we are talking about cost. That comes with increased cost.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be thinking about increasing the cost for our people. We should be talking about lessening the cost for these activities we are talking about. So these are some of the things that tend to get lost in some of the discussion.
Very quickly, Mr. President, does it come down to political will? Is this the reason why we probably still have a little bit of a disconnect from a policy harmonization and alignment of regulation, or is it more than political will?
There is quite a bit of that, absolutely.
Yeah.
We need to keep upping our game in realizing the need for cooperation, for working together, because it has that meaning behind it.
Yeah.
The meaning is working directly with each other. It means reducing the cost. It means it's just logical.
So what I'm almost hearing is that we need to find the courage to go back to ask the simple question, why?
Yes.
Why do we keep doing things the way that we've done them? And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to quickly turn to our special interventions. I'm going to again reiterate and emphasize the 1 minute that we'd kindly like our special interventions to respond to. And essentially what I'm going to ask each of you is just to give us a reflection of what you've heard from this conversation, but most importantly, given the reality that this is not the first time that we speak about having or working towards digital economies on the continent, what are we having to do fundamentally differently? Even if it's just one thing, what might we have to do fundamentally differently to really begin to see the progress? Essentially, it's one thing that we have to have the courage to confront and say, why have we been doing this in this way, and could we do it differently? And so to give us their first reflections, I'd like the microphone, please, to make its way to Dr. Amani Abu Zaid, the Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy at the AU Commission. Dr. Abu Zaid, thank you very much. So just 1 minute, your thoughts on what do we need to do fundamentally differently? What is the one thing we need to question? Why have we been doing this the way we've been doing it?
One, political will. And two, please, all of us to come together to start by ratifying and working within the plans and the conventions set by all of us, by our leaders on the African continent, and implement those decisions and those conventions. Three, I don't think we lack the will, from our partners or even the funds but we lack some capacity, and I'm sure that all of us here together, we can provide for this capacity and make sure that things are implemented and fast. And as it was said earlier by our leaders, and I believe in it as an engineer originally before being economist, all technical challenges have technical solutions. I have absolutely no doubt. But will, capacity, hope, and ambition gets us there.
Thank you very much. All technical challenges have technical solutions. We've got to get right the political will. We need to ensure that we're moving from the continental agenda into our national economic development plans. And finally, we need to make sure we have the capacity, the muscle, to actually deliver on those plans. Thank you very much, Dr. Abu Zaid. Clear, concise, and to the point. I'd like to move to the Vice President for Infrastructure at the World Bank, Makto Diop, to also just give us his thoughts on what do we need to do differently? What have we not found the courage to question why we keep doing it in this way? If you may kindly please take the microphone, sir. Thank you.
I will just repeat what she said. Have a plan, execute it, like I said, basketball, execute, 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 have targets, and make ourselves accountable around those targets. Secondly, invest in human capital. We need to have people trained in our sectors. Today we are seeing very good things in Ghana, in Rwanda, in Kenya, where people are investing not only in basic skills, but in higher education, in artificial intelligence. We need to do it. Third, to learn from each other. Things have been going well in some part of Africa. They are not moving as fast in other part of Africa. How can we learn from what is happening in one part of Africa and translate it in another part of Africa?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Execute, execute, execute. It is not good enough to just have a plan. We need to execute, but I really love the emphasis on ensuring that as we plan to execute, we also plan to hold each other accountable. Invest in the human capital as well coming through. Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to make a quick segue to Dr. Mukisa Kutuyu, the Secretary General of UNCTAD, to also, in a minute, to give us a sense of what do we need to do fundamentally different from the way we've been doing it before?
The first thing is to appreciate that African presidents are like a class.
A class.
In front of you have the best performing students. But absent from this class are the poorest students. If we could get more African presidents to do what Uhuru Kenyatta and Paul Kagame are doing, our average will go up. The second thing is this. Most African governments have been having investment facilitation policies, tax exemptions, waivers of certain corporate obligations to incentivize investment. What you have been doing for foreign investors, do it for your startups. Exempt them. And finally, the third thing, investing in labs, business accelerators, mentorship programs should be mainstreamed as part of the core business of government.
Thank you very much, Secretary General of UNCTAD. I'll reserve my comments on A-class students and B-class students. But what I will say is that a really powerful point on tax incentives, there have been many incentives for foreign multinationals to come into our markets. What are we doing for local companies? What are we doing for our own startups? What are we doing for our own entrepreneurs? And surely there's more we can do in terms of making sure that labs become part of the ecosystem of our economies. I'm going to go to the final intervention this afternoon. I'd like Dr. Vera Songwe, Executive Secretary at UNECA, to please kindly give us the remarks as well. Please, Dr. Songwe. Thank you very much. Are you here, Doctor? Would kindly please stand? There she is. Can we kindly please get the microphone? Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Excellencies. I think just three things. The first is coming from the United Nations inclusion. And as we talk about this, the cost of broadband, when we look at the cost of broadband on the continent, it goes from about $1.20 to $20. maybe the next time we meet, we can bring that average to 10. So when we measure things, we can follow up. And so let's just look at the numbers and see where we go. The second, and I think that the excellencies have mentioned that, is international cooperation, harmonization and regulation. It is very interesting and very exciting when we see everybody in the room here today, but with 2 or 3 regulations on financial markets in offshore centers, we can close all our financial markets down with know your client regulations and things like that. So we do need to ensure that Africa develops a harmonized regulatory framework that is able to correspond with the rest of the world so that we can assure this. And finally, women, again, about the inclusion agenda. The 50% of the continent that is women we must ensure with policy that they continue to contribute and benefit from this digital agenda. Today the numbers are widening, the gap is widening. Only 80% of women have access to the internet on the continent compared to men. And the men is 27%. So we do need to ensure that women continue to have the same opportunities like the men. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very clear challenge is asked that by the next time we meet, that we have gotten to an average of about $10 when it comes to the cost of broadband. So a very clear target there, moving forward towards a regulatory framework that is harmonized across the continent. And let us not make the mistake of also ensuring that as we march towards a transformed Africa, that we're leaving women and young girls behind. So as we begin to wrap up this conversation, I do want to say thank you for the special interventions. If there's one thing, Your Excellencies, that from this short, sharp, concise conversation that you would like the hundreds of delegates that are gathered here this afternoon to walk away with, what would that be? But I'm going to make your job a little bit harder. I'm going to ask you to give it to us in a headline. One line, the one thing that the delegates need to walk away with after this conversation. And I know that my colleagues from the media are all paying close attention because this is going to be the headline on the newspapers tomorrow morning, and it is going to be the headline on the news this evening. So you have a big job ahead of you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first ask His Excellency President Boubacar Keita to give us his one line. The headlines, one sentence, Your Excellency. What would you like the delegates to walk away with?
Aujourd'hui, au moment où je suis ici à Kigali, 3 jeunes Maliens sont dans la Silicon Valley. Et ils étaient partis là-bas pour voir les possibilités de financement de leurs inventions, c'est des start-upers. Et c'est ça l'avenir, c'est ça l'espoir. Et je pense que 3, cette fois-ci, mais la prochaine fois, il y aura peut-être une centaine. Mais au lieu que d'aller dans la Silicon Valley, ils pourraient venir à Kigali. Inch'Allah.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So we have a little bit of an executive summary from the President instead of a one line, but from 3 to 100. 3 to 100 young people in Kenya unlocking funding for Mali and the digital startups in Mali. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We think we might hire you in the media yet. Okay, so I'm making my way over to Kenya. I'm buying you some time, President Kagame. So let me come to President Kenyatta. And Your Excellency, just one line. You have 10 words, essentially. What is the headline that you would like everybody to walk away with?
Breaking down barriers for Africa to take full advantage of our digital future.
Yes. Breaking down barriers for Africa to take full advantage of our digital future. It's 2 lines on the front page. I think we can work with it. And finally, President Kagame, the floor is yours. If you can get it under 10 words, I will trade jobs with you. Right. 10 words. What would you like everybody to leave with?
Everything we need for transformation is in this room or represented in this room.
Let's put it to the test. Let's put it to the test. Everything we need for transformation is in this room or represented in this room. Can we give it to him in that way? Ladies and gentlemen, may we kindly give a rousing round of applause for our excellencies and the conversation. Thank you very much.